this discussion today is something that was developed a number of years ago. It started in way back, actually in 1997, when he gave a 2-day workshop for PMI at their Congress in Chicago, and that 2-day workshop was attended by 65 people. The title was Project Support Office, a Framework for Development. At that point in time, there wasn't a lot of information out there on the internet that I could find that really talked about some of the characteristics or the issues that surrounds development of PMOs. Obviously, there was a lot of interest in it because it really started showing itself when Y2K came about in 2000. And so as that progressed and I started collecting data on it, and then in 2007, or actually in 2001, I met my co-author and business partner at a PMI Congress workshop for the standards group, and threw my hat in the ring and became the project manager for the PMBOK Guide 3rd edition. And Daryl Hubbard, my partner, became my the deputy project manager. And over the years, we talked about, hey, someday we're going to write a book, and we did in 2007. And then we resubmitted the book because we owned it at that point, and republished it as a paperback in 2014. What came out of this whole discussion here today was that as I was out talking to organizations around the world about project business management and organizational project management, I always got asked the question, well, has anybody ever done it? Well, we finally answered that question in 2012, where we published volume 1 of our PMO case studies. There's 11 companies that actually implemented the project business management framework and model that we developed in our books. And then we republished this. We published a second edition, a second volume in 2016 last year that has 8 organizations. We expanded, doubled the size of the survey instrument, and they all are in this, have also demonstrated executive ownership of the project business management organization. You're going to see some of that in today's presentation. Well, here's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about organizational project business management and its relationships to business management, and I'm going to talk about their framework and the model that we created. OPBM, organizational functions and capabilities. We're going to talk about what does that look like as it relates to enterprise level, divisional level, and business unit level, because PMOs are typically developed or are positioned within one of these levels of the organization. Project offices, OPBM, enterprise value. What are the values and benefits that we have discovered and that we base our framework and models on? And then what are the implications of the current applications? And then we'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions. So I'm going to move along, and if you would just post your questions, they will be gathered. Jessica, or not Jessica, it's I'm sorry. She will. The host will gather those, and we'll address those at the end. And if you want to get a direct answer to me, that'd be great. Email me your questions, and I will email you the answers back to you. These are the kind of questions that you need to ask, or that need to be asked by yourself or the organization. How many of your executives actually recognize project management as a business function? In my discussions with executives in organizations, I find a lot of them really just don't see it as a business function. They may have project managers, but it's not very well organized. Then the next question is, how many of your enterprises have a project office, a PMO? Some of them, in fact, if I recall, Dr. Hobbs back in 2004 did a global research. He researched 500 different companies around the world and came up with a report that describe what the issues were. And many of those issues that he discovered in 2004 and then re-evaluated again in 2007 and another report are still issues that organizations struggle with. How many enterprises have an enterprise PMO? I'd like to know that. I'd like to have you answer these questions for me. And if you would be so kind as to send me an email, and you'll see the email address at the end of this presentation. And then the last question is, how many of those enterprise PMOs report to a C-level organization owner? Well, what are the drivers of organizational project management? Well, for the past 65 years, this discipline has grown. It's matured. It's incorporated many aspects of general business management. And even so, there's still, as I mentioned, there's still some interesting difficulties. And I've talked about that a lot of times. In fact, I think some of my past presentations to the webinar were addressing that. The growth was facilitated and integrated by methodologies and processes. The operations of management and project management related to these EPMOs, or enterprise offices, that address projects and portfolios and programs, have been pretty much now organized and facilitated by establishing methodologies, standards, methodologies, and processes, which really led to the construction of organizational project management and in our OPBM framework. PMI in the last couple of years and now recently is working on producing a standard for organizational project management, which we really addressed way back in our first book in 2007 and have been really ever since then addressing the whole concept of what organizational project management is and where it needs to be placed, why it needs to be positioned, and what its functions are. And then the further evaluation, or evolution rather, of OPBM was made assuming that the executive management has a direct role in managing and implementing the OPBM, and also in managing the associated project business management organization. That's executives need to own it. In fact, when I talk to executives, I say, you know, your business, I don't care what it is, whether you're profit, nonprofit, or whether you're government or whatever you produce, whatever you make in the way of a product or service is created by projects. So hence, your business is project management based. It should be then created as and viewed as a business function. I hope that makes sense, because a lot of times when I explain it that way, it does. Well, what are the operation drivers of OPBM? Well, it's organizations need to be competitive. You can't afford to authorize or fund or execute projects that really don't support the clear controlling strategy of the organization. Projects, portfolios, and programs, they are really strategic business investments. You're putting money and resources in it. Therefore, they must be properly managed. And unfortunately, many of them are not. They're not being managed that way. Traditionally, limited operations management approaches were used. In fact, they pretty much relied on basic project-centric, executed-oriented methodology. They weren't very focused on what we consider today organizational project management. They were inefficient, ineffective from a business management perspective, and they put the enterprise business benefits and values at risk. As a matter of fact, very seldom in the process of looking at why are you doing a project and in evaluating what a strategic project is, the concept of really understanding what are the benefits and value that we are looking to receive from the end result of this project, they aren't often really identified. And